And we are live on Oz Property Investors. We bring the big names and we have the big fun. And Terry, what a day for you, mate. How you going?
I'm well, Jeff, mate. How are you?
Yeah, good. Just cracked open a mad burp just before we hit the live. So everybody needs to know that. So this is going to be in the annals of YouTube forever. So no, I'm excited. That day was good, and I'm excited. It's been too long since between drinks, so to speak. So, but really excited to hear about your journey and just share the wisdom, share the gold. And how about yourself, Joe? What's happening, man? How's your day been?
Mate, my day's been fantastic. I've been doing a lot of buying in Adelaide, which is where Terry is from. Which is funny, but Terry's not in Adelaide at the moment. He's in WA checking. I don't know what you're doing in WA, Terry, but he got stuck on a flight. He was meant to be in Adelaide right now, but flight got turned around. What's going on?
Dramas. About half an hour into the flight, just did a full 180 and back to Perth. And luckily I have a good mate who lives in Perth, so it wasn't too much of an inconvenience. So back in his bathroom at his place for this, so pretty classy. It's
a classy joint. I like how the towel's there. I like.
You can just see the towel. I might just do that.
That's exciting. I hope the production quality's that's and the comments are rolling in. So throw us your comments, drop a like, all that good stuff. So maybe just the traffic's only going one direction. It's not going back to Adelaide. It's only going back to Perth. So maybe there's something in that. Maybe there isn't, because Joe went to Perth last week, and maybe I'm sure it's not really. Joe was intrigued by what was going on in Perth. But anyway, let's get into quote of the week, because I want to make sure we give the audience, and I want to make sure we get Terry so we can go and have some dinner or just do all the good stuff, because it's just day's been thrown to chaos. So what's your quote of the week? Should we go to I'm curious. What's yours, Terry?
Mine. I was thinking about this. You told me about it the other day, and I was thinking about this. It's got a bit of a backstory. So my mum had this. There was a poster that was on the back of the door of the smallest room in the house. So you used to look at it during some private time, and it was 21 suggestions for success. And there was one that always sort of stood out to me, and there was some of the crap. There was one that always stood out to me, and it just said, "Do things. You'll regret the things you will regret the things you didn't do more than the things you did." And I always sort of thought that's a good way to live life. So
what is it?
It's do things, you'll regret the things you didn't do more than the things you did.
Yeah. I've heard the story of there was a lady that went into like a old people home and where everyone moving on to the next phase of their life, and that was the biggest thing. They regretted more than anything the things that they didn't do rather than the mistakes that they made. Like they're like, yeah, I just made a mistake, and at least I tried. So I love that one. That one's awesome. Good. Well played, Mum.
What's the most recent thing you regret that you didn't do, Terry?
Getting on a plane on Virgin in WA.
You put me on the spot there. Yeah, probably I regret it. Yeah, I regretted getting on the plane this afternoon, but only once I turned it around. That wasn't much fun. So there was.
What was the next one? What was the next quote on there? You had 21. Do you remember any others?
One of them I always thought was a bit strange. It said, "Marry the right person." And I always looked at that and sort of thought, yeah, okay, well, how are you going to know that until down the track? But
it's what divorce is
suddenly. Yeah, it was just the rest of them were all really positive, and that one was sort of just seemed a bit,
marry the right person.
Yeah,
get
it done. What about you, Jeff? What is your quote of the week, mate?
So because we sort of made Terry into a Viking for this session, because it was just it's good fun to make people into different characters. So I was looking at Viking characters, and there was a lot of interesting ones. I'll say that, but the one that sort of I felt was somewhat appropriate to share was wisdom is welcome wherever it comes from. So I know that sounds interesting, because arguably you could say that that's not the great. You could say that there's people that you get some wisdom from them, and maybe you shouldn't take heed of it. But I think for me, it sort of says that just because you're a multi-million-dollar investor, maybe even if you're Warren Buffett, I'm sure he sort of sits back and says, well, actually, there's something that I can learn from that person, that wisdom in that moment. So I think for me, that was pretty interesting. I kind of wanted to throw out a couple of other Viking quotes, but I thought maybe they're not appropriate for this session. But, yeah.
I always sort of think that nobody has a monopoly on good ideas.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's
turn it into a quote fest.
So
just do it. You could turn it into a quote fest. Like we're like riff. Yeah, I was gonna say you can throw out the just do it because you got your Nike shirt on. Is it Nike or is it Nike? So Joe, your quote of the week. Sorry, let's get onto it.
Let's get onto it. Let's get into today. Today's all about Uncle Terry. And
what's your quote? What's your quote though, Joe?
What's my quote? Yeah. My quote, can't get out of it that easy. My quote is from Thomas Edison. Many of life failures are people who didn't realize how close they were to success when they gave up. And I think that I actually see that a lot in property. And a lot of the people that I speak with actually within this group, within other groups, everywhere else, is they go through the research phase and they get super pumped up. They get super excited. They get, and then 6 months, 3 months in, 6 months in, they get analysis paralysis. There's all this data and metrics and things that they need to crunch and do. And they don't realize how close they are to success. They know where the best suburbs are, but they're choosing, suburb A in Perth and suburb B in Adelaide. And at the end of the day, it's going to have the best result. Either way, you're going to have an amazing result. That one might be 0.2% better. That one might be 0.3% more yield. But then they just don't take any action, and that's the worst. That's the worst problem of it all. They just get too excited. So, that's my little quote. You don't realize how close you are to failure, to success, whatever it was. That's mine.
So deep. He was doing so well, and then he just you don't realize how close to success you are at any stage. I think is the quote.
Yeah.
Like
many of life failures are people who didn't realize how close they were to success when they gave up. So anyway, I have a feeling you're going to coin the nickname Uncle Terry because that is what I call you, mate, because you are everyone's favorite friend and uncle when it comes to the property investment world. So what we're going to do is deep dive into your story because you've done pretty well now. This last property cycle has treated you incredibly well, but there's no way you would have been able to achieve this without the hard work and effort that you put in deliberately right at the beginning, which has been able to yield you these results. So what we'll do is we'll dive into our first ad and then we will dive into your story. Do it. What are we going to do? That one. Selling a property. It isn't something we do every single day. There's actually more involved in the process than you may initially think. Like, how do you find the best agent? How do you ensure that you're going to pay the lowest fees? It's not easy, and then also throw in all the stress and pressure of selling. And that's why Scott Agate, a former real estate agent and expert property negotiator from Hello House, has created his leading agent finder service. After a 20-year career managing agents himself, Scott has personally conducted over 3,000 property transactions, along with running 3 Bell franchises. He knows all these agent tricks. Scott has created an in-depth 5-step process for his leading agent finder service. First, he establishes the true market value for your property, uses a triangulation method to shortlist the leading agents, creates a competitive environment for those agents to send through their best proposals, vets those proposals, and then he negotiates the best agent fees for you. This ensures that you're not only getting the best rate for selling, but most importantly, you have a leading agent on your side selling your property to maximize the end sale value. Oh, and did I mention this service is completely free? If you'd like to know exactly how Scott runs his 5-step leading agent finder service, he's detailed it with the link below. Or if you'd like to speak with Scott to help find you the leading agent in your area, book a call today.
There we go. It's interesting. The triangulation method. Gee, I think he's coined a new word there. Good old. It sounds like strangulation, but maybe I shouldn't. Yeah. Anyway, that's beside the point. On to the man of. I also saw that Hayden saying that he came for the property knowledge, but he stays to catch a glimpse of Terry in the shower. So good old Hayden. Never
we don't.
Hayden Westy. Good old Westy.
So who have we got here, Jeff Miles? Who are we dealing with today in our live session?
So I did a bit of research into Terry. I mean, I've known him for 4 or 5 years, and probably the key point to know about him is that he's a Canberra Raiders fan. So I don't need to say anymore. Enough said. Like I'm a Canterbury Bulldogs fan, so they're a little bit better than us. But no, property wise, you own 5. I thought it was 6, so I thought you've deceived me. So I think it's worth, let's say, multi-million. I was going to throw a number out there of 3 million plus, but who knows? You love a good reno. You're constantly looking to improve how you're investing and learn new things. So I think for me, that typifies you. You're not one who just sort of rests on your laurels. You are one to sort of say, is there an area, or can I do better? How do I sort of, is there something else I can improve upon, or what's my next move? And that's your enthusiasm, and you're not you're like Edison. You're so close. You're continuing to build success. Anything I missed?
No, mate. That's very kind.
How about that Instagram situation? Oh, we won't bring up the Instagram. Sorry, I'll stitch you up with it.
Oh, I don't know the reference. I'm going to avoid that, whatever that is.
Yeah, safe bet.
So it was the renovation. Do you think person you got off who took away $900 or something? Was it?
Oh, the fencer. Yeah, he's no, that wasn't Instagram. He was just a scammer. I think he's currently got free board and meals at one of the Queensland government's fine establishments. They have bars on the windows. So yeah, well, I wasn't the first one. Yeah, exactly. So.
There you go.
But no, that lesson learned, that one.
Yeah. Anyway, so Terry, I want to take it all the way back to the beginning. How did you fall into property investing? Like, what was the influence that led you into buying your first property? And then we can talk about that first property. Well, what got you there?
So Queensland had a pretty strong property market in the early 2000s as I was sort of finishing high school. So I always sort of thought property was a good place to park your money. And I sort of started with the idea of if I buy 2 properties and wait the 7 years that everybody talks about for them to double in value, I sell one and I pay off the other. And that was literally how I started, right? I bought in 2009. I was a second-year apprentice, I think, from memory. And that house did absolutely nothing for about a decade. So,
okay.
So
how'd you do that? So second-year apprentice, I imagine you were on beer money. Like, how do you afford a property, and what did that kind of look like purchasing?
So $368 I paid for it, and there's a little interesting suburb called Acacia Ridge in Brisbane. Bit lower, bit of a lower socioeconomic sort of area, but lovely people live there and still do today. But I think I was at about $500 a week. For a second-year apprentice, I wasn't on terrible money, but saved up a bit, and there was the first home buyers grant back then. Luckily, I think it was 10,500, and I'd saved a little bit, and mum and dad went guarantor, did that sort of thing. So lucky enough that they were able to sort of do that, so just sort of had that one and sat it there for quite a while. The plan was always to wait until it increased in value and pull equity out, but that sort of took longer than what I'd hoped.
Yeah, and how did you decide on Acacia Ridge for the location?
Look, I lived there, so it was pretty much what I could afford at the time. It was very, very naive. Like, I possibly did everything wrong in the negotiation. It was terrible. I probably could have bought it for 30 grand cheaper than what I paid. But looking back at it now, I cringe. Like, I was just thinking about it this afternoon, actually, and when we negotiated on it, I called the agent and went, we want to make an offer. And she went, well, I'm actually meeting up with the sellers in West End in Brisbane. And I went, I'm not far from West End. What if I just turn up and you can sort of go between the two of us and negotiate like that? And now I look at that and go, you absolute goose. Like, why would you do that? You know, you're just showing your hand that you're so keen on this property that you're never going to walk away. Yeah, and so I thought I was a genius because they wanted offers over 369 and I paid 368. So I saved myself $1,000.
You did real
well.
Now
looking at that, I thought, you probably could have bought it for 20 or 30 grand more than what they were asking at the time.
We're going to go
how did you get to the state? Like, I don't know if Joe, sorry if I dropped off, but how did you think about what was the reason you decided you wanted to buy a property? Was it just because what everybody did, or what was it?
My mum always was very pro property. My parents never bit the bullet and actually invested themselves, but mum was always very positive about it. Knew some people who'd done okay, and sort of, at least instilled to try to get my hands on a property to live in the first instance. And then it was just sort of I've started reading more, and there weren't these groups like yours yet, but I definitely started reading sort of books in those old magazines, for the property investor magazines that you pick up. So it was just that, and it's just sort of snowballed from there.
Was there a pinnacle, like, was there a pivotal book that you remember, like, being like, oh, this is the one, or was it just a collection of the classics, I guess?
No, I can't remember anything specific, like the light bulb sort of moment, as far as some sort of book or podcast, or they weren't podcasts back then. But I can't think of anything specific. No.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, sorry, Jeff. Going back to this one, is what did this first property look like? Like, so 338,000, like, 368. You had to move into it because it was the first home buyer grant. So what was it? It was a full renovation job? Was it, a brand new off the plan? Like, what did it actually look like?
No, so it was in pretty good. It was in pretty good condition. Bathroom 5 or 6 years old. Same with the kitchen. So it's still exactly as it was pretty much when I bought it. So this wasn't really the start of my investing sort of journey. It was just it was just happened to be the first property that I bought. It's still rented as is today, as what it was back then. So three and one. If you know Acacia Ridge, if you've been through a 3-in-1 house in Acacia Ridge, it's the same floor plan. They're all the same. So very similar.
Yeah.
So that was sort of the start of my first property I bought, but not really the start of my investing.
So you're saying you didn't start your investing until then. Like, what were the lessons that you learned from that sucker, like, to lead you into the next one?
So I sort of sat on that for probably 4 or 5 years. So I got to about 2014. I went, the growth here isn't coming. I can't wait for this to sort of happen. So I'll probably be in 2015. My now wife and I, we sort of looked at each other and went, well, if we want to do this property thing, we're going to have to start saving, another deposit and whatever, Yeah. And so we saved about close to 100,000 in about 18 months. Like, we just didn't go out.
Wow.
I was lucky enough to have a decent paying job, and her as well. And so I did every bit of overtime I could do, and probably didn't sleep for 12 months. And I think it was about 18 months we saved close to 100 grand, and then we bought a place. Yeah. So it's not.
Hang on. That's mental. 100 grand. Because I don't think you. So what? Why? Like, why do that? Why sacrifice so much? Because I know, like, you were on a good salary and your wife's on a good salary, but not that great. Like, not that 100 grand was nothing. Like, you crushed it. So, like, why did you guys decide to do it? What was it?
Oh, it was just because I wasn't going to wait for Acacia Ridge to do what it hasn't. Like, if I'd have waited, I'd have got to this most recent boom and owned 360 grand's worth of property. and it's done great, right? Acacia Ridge that house is probably worth close to 700,000 now, but I'd have the one, and so we'd still be at one property. So we just went, well, we can't rely on the growth. Let's go and save that deposit, and then it sort of snowballed from there.
Yeah, I think for everybody watching, sorry to jump in, Joe, but I'm going to do it.
No.
I think for everybody watching at home, that's a gold nugget, because a lot of people, we're starting to, and yes, there is still a lot of growth around the place, but you'll start to see markets that won't, we'll pick on Sydney, we'll pick on Melbourne. These places, they're sort of starting to tread water, maybe even go a little bit backwards. So you may see over the next 2 or 3 years, you may not see a lot of growth. And it's not to say, of course, markets been markets, but Terry just said, look, I've got to take the bull by the horns, take a bit of initiative. I can sort of sit back and say, oh, look, I haven't picked the property that's gone up 200% in the next sort of 24 months or whatever it is. Or I can actually put my head down and save money and make it and build that door to get to the next property. So, sorry, go on, Joe.
No, it's 100% true, right? It's proactive approach, right? Rather than reactive, rather than just letting it sit and simmer. So yeah, I guess what that was like was just plugging away, working your butt off to be able to do it. What was that next purchase like? What did you go for? And were you more strategic in it? Because did you feel like there was, because you had 100%, 100 grand of sweat equity, of real hard earned cash, did you think a lot more about what this next purchase was and what it needed to be? And was it worth more to you?
A little bit, yeah, but it still wasn't perfect, right? It was better. I bought a place on the Gold Coast because that was sort of, we bought a place to live in, and then we thought we started to renovate it. And I started looking at it thinking, I ended up probably spending $60,000 to $80,000 on that house and increased the value by a bit over 100, right? The goal was always to sort of renovate and add a bedroom and add a bathroom to it, because that was sort of, I could see a disparity, and that's a common theme following on from there. But there's a disparity between it was a 4 and 2, and there were 5 bedroom, 3 bathroom houses selling for a bit more. It's not ideal. You can get better bang for buck adding bedrooms and bathrooms. I wouldn't add a bedroom and a bathroom to a 4 and 2 again. But it just proved to me that, hey, I can do this renovation, and now it's worth more. Next time, I'll just do it a bit better. How do I get it better? So we did the renovation on that one, and yeah, I think we bought it for like $530,000, and at the end of the renovation, it was worth close to 700, between 650 and 700, somewhere there. So
wow, how much did you spend on it?
But this was over a couple of years, and it was while we were living there, so it was quite slow. So that was one of the other things. It was quite slow, and it was not very cost effective. And so I went, I need to come up with I've proven that I can increase the value, but have I done it the best way? And can I do this better and make money?
Yeah. Okay. So that's interesting. I lost my question. I had a great question and then disappeared.
Can't be that good then.
Yeah.
It will come back.
Yeah, of course.
Jeff, you go on, mate. You've got a good question.
I was going to say, tell us more about. So you bought on you said you bought on the Gold Coast. What was the thought process behind the area? Like, why did you go to the Goldie?
So at the time, I was working on the Gold Coast. My wife was working in Brisbane, so we ended up we settled on a place in the northern end of the Gold Coast because we were going to live in it. That was sort of not halfway, but with my job and after hours call, working on elevators, so you have to get people out, truck passengers out late at night, so you have to be close enough. But yeah, so we just sort of picked that based on where we wanted to live at that point, and then sort of work back from there. Like I said, it's similar to Acacia Ridge. It was sort of, Acacia Ridge had no thought of really any sort of fundamentals. Helensvale was sort of like the first foray into a bit of starting to think about those things, and then the others sort of went further from there.
Yeah, yeah. What sort of fundamentals did you see in Helensvale that you liked, apart from sort of being close to?
Look, at the time, there wasn't. It was mostly convenience for us on how we were living at the time. I like Helensvale long term. There's, it's close for people who aren't familiar. It's close to all the theme parks. They're not. Movie World's probably a 2-minute drive from the house, but as far as it's still commutable to Brisbane. They're building a second highway between, well, not quite to Brisbane, but it'll take a lot of the traffic off the road, which will make it easier to commute. They upgraded the light rail joins in at Helensvale to the heavy rail, so it's a good spot to be able to get into surfers and but also get into Brisbane. So it's quite a nice spot, but it's not. I wouldn't say that those were the reasons why we bought it. It was just convenience for us at the time.
Did you party at Q1 very often? Or?
I've never been to Q1.
As you know, then, yeah.
Look, I'm sure it's great, but I've just never been there.
Yeah. Heard it's fantastic. But that's one of the things as well. Like, everyone's like, oh yeah, investing needs to be an unemotional sport and you don't need to put your emotional thoughts and feelings over the top of it. But I imagine Helensvale's done really very well. It's done well because you wanted to live there and you're the type of person that is attracted to Helensvale, which means there's more people like you that are attracted to Helensvale, which has then lifted the price up because you can get easy access to the Gold Coast, you can get easy access to Brisbane, and you're able to do it. And that helps as well. So it's people that say, take off your emotional hat. I also say, well, no, you do have to think, would I want to live here? And if I was if I lived in this type of area, would I want to be there? So I'm interested about this thing with the 4-bedroom. So you did 4-bedroom, 1 bathroom to 5-bedroom, 2 bathrooms. So was that an accident or did you?
No. So what we did was we had excuse me, like almost a triple garage underneath that was legal height. And so we just built it into almost like a separate granny flat, which has worked well long term. So it's got a kitchenette, 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, so it's fully sort of self-contained. The laundry is also in a good spot where you could turn it into a proper shared laundry. So you could actually have a proper dual living, but it's not at the moment. It's just rented. But the rental yield on that, it's a bit low at the moment. But the rental growth in Helensvale, it's done about 30% in the last 12 to 18 months. It's been crazy.
Yeah, well, that's like everyone's talking about these interest rate rises and how scary it is and all of that stuff. But it's more of a concern for owner occupiers, not so much for investors, because our rents have raised. Like, I went from a $300 rent to a $50, like $300 to $350. On another property, I went from $350 to $400. Like, it's not really, because we've done incredibly well, and we're also at these crazy. We're at emergency interest rates that we shouldn't even really be in. The government just got a little bit heavy-handed with their lowering of the rates at that, during COVID, and got scared. But anyway, it's awesome that you've had such a good return from the rest.
Just to correct you, Joe, it's not the government. So it's a RBA.
Sorry, the RBA
is independent, supposedly, from the government.
Don't worry, Labor's going to review it. There's a review of the RBA. So
I can't you.
Yeah,
that's good.
No, look, and with Helensvale, like, as much as it wasn't the most ideal investment decision at that time, we definitely negotiated better. Like, the place we have, we're lucky enough it was on the golf course, and we ended up, because it was a little bit ugly, we bought it for less than what other places on sort of smaller blocks, smaller houses were off the golf course. So we did we did okay in negotiation wise. So it's sort of like a little bit of growth each time with me. So we're getting there.
Yeah, that's interesting, because Jason Bush, he knows the story back of where he said, "Would you invest on the Gold Course?"
Yeah,
so alluding to you.
Yeah, look, don't let him ask any questions.
Yeah.
No, that's fantastic.
Yeah. No. I want to know what happened next, right? So you've you've turned a 4-bed into a 5-bed, and you've added a bathroom. Now that sounds pretty easy when there's legal height underneath the house. What happened to the next purchase? What does that look like?
Okay, so the next purchase was back in Brisbane, and I have to give my wife credit for this because I looked at this one and dismissed it, and we were looking for a while, and I sort of said to her, I said, "Oh, look, I'm sick of it. I don't want to. I'm going to take a couple of weeks off and stop looking at property." And she called me back or sent me a text half an hour later and said, "Have you looked at this one?" I went, "Yeah, it's crap." And she sends back, "Well, what if we did this, this, and this?" And I went, "I'll never admit it, but you're a genius." And so. Yeah, so we ended up buying another 3-in-1 in a suburb called Carindale in Brisbane. Now the house was double brick, and it had cracks in every wall. So apparently the clay soil in Carindale can cause this to happen. It's not common, but it's also not uncommon. And so they'd had about 3 contracts on it. First home buyers, etc., and they'd all fallen over because the building and pest guy had walked in and gone, "Do you realise there's cracks in every wall?" We're talking about cracks you could fit a $2 coin in, like they're significant cracking, right? And so we took it on because I sort of was able to quantify it. I spoke to an engineer, and he sort of didn't give me much, but I spoke to a company that does injection underpinning, so. They came in and they literally drill a hole in the ground, and I don't know if you know the expanding foam, the construction foam you get. It's sort of like that, but on steroids, and it can lift 40 ton per square meter, which blows my mind, right? Jesus. And it literally just jacks the house back up, and so the gaps close and plastered over the walls, and so we ended up buying that place for about $510,000, which was $5,000 more than land value. And then it also had a little a useless little room off the lounge room that was perfect to become a bedroom, and then the bathroom was it was almost like 1.5 bathrooms, and just it was really awkwardly set out, and the amount of space we had, it was easy to just sort of add or put a wall up, turn it into an ensuite and a full bathroom. So change that from a 3-in-1 to a 4-in-2 pretty easily. Probably spent 50, 60. The underpinning was 20, so it wasn't cheap. But we probably got it about 120, 130 less than what they were asking for. So yeah.
Wow. So that's actually a great buy, like a bargain buy there, I'd say. And was this sort of 2015, 2016, was it roughly? Or?
No, so all this started, like we bought Helensvale in 2016 and then spent a couple of years mucking around getting it done. And so Carindale was 2019. And so that place, I think it's probably worth about 1.2 now, 1.25, something like that.
I was looking at the numbers here, and it says here medians imperfect, but medians apparently 1.22 for 4-bedder in Carindale. So it's absolutely the demand.
So that's crushed it. So you bought it. Hang on, so you bought it for 500 and something. What was it? 500.
About 510 from memory. Yeah.
510. You've spent 20 on foam, so that's 530. And then
we probably spent if you said 60,000 on the Renault, there'd be change from that.
Right.
And then so we're probably into it for close to 600,000 all up with stamp duty, etc. So it valued.
So did you see? So did you see that lift as that quickly? Like once you jacked the house up to make it nice, this was a pure investment property, right? Like you weren't moving into it; you were just renovating it.
Yeah. So this was the first one where we just sort of went, let's have a plan, it obviously paid much better dividends than the others.
Yeah, and then what was it revalued at once you spent that 60 grand on the Renault?
Off the top of my head, it was sort of mid sevens. So mid sevens. Actually, Jason Bush would know because he was my broker at the time. Ask him. About time he made himself useful.
He's a great broker, though, obviously. No.
He doesn't do it anymore. So.
He said, did you have much help in renovating? I think he knows the story back to front, so he's leading questions here.
He does. He's a good friend of mine. It pains me to say, but yeah, no. Look, I'm lucky that I'm an electrician by trade, so I can sort of do all that sort of things. And then my father-in-law is a plumber who does bathrooms for a living. So he's obviously out there to help me out with those sorts of things. So he's one of those people who can do everything.
That's Andy Murray who said that. So we got a famous Scottish tennis player on the feed.
Who said what?
Oh, Andy Murray. Oh man, that was
okay.
It's
Andy. Comment here. There's a comment here that says got his nice shirt to remind people to just do it. So okay, so it's a really good point, right? So you're an electrician. That doesn't mean you're a plumber. It doesn't mean you can build a wall. How important is a team of good people around you? Like how has that actually made your journey possible, or has it not? And you've just been the best.
Definitely not the best. No, look, with sort of the father-in-law, he's one of those sort of guys who can do a bit of everything. So we did a lot of the stuff ourselves, but with like stuff like plastering, you can do it, but it's just terrible and I hate it. Painting, the same. Painting's easy, and if you want to spend the minimal amount of money for the biggest bang for buck, go buy a couple $100 worth of paint and paint your investment properties. But I hate it and flat out refuse. I just don't have the patience.
It's not me.
But no, yeah. So, but yeah, we've got a lot of friends through sport
Trades.
and whatever over the years and trade. Yeah, that I know. So he's probably watching. Michael Zarans did a fair bit of tiling for me. So it's helpful to have these sort of connections. But if you don't have those connections, you can still sort of, like I say, you can paint, you can learn how to do little bits of plastering, you can put together a caboodle kitchen, you can do demo work, you can do all the little bits and pieces that cost time and therefore money, and then have the trades come in off the back of it and save yourself that sort of money. But yeah, that's a fantastic point. That's one of the things I bought. What are they? It's called Fix It Yourself by whatever. It's just a book that, this thick, that it just has step-by-step guides of how to fix anything. On my first renovation, that's exactly what you do. You go out there, you do everything possible that you can, and then just outsource the rest. But how do people like? How did you get some of those trades to help you out? Right, like, I don't know. How can someone get an affordable reno done this day and age? Like, have you got any little tips and tricks on how you can get tradies to help you out, or I don't know. How do you do it? Because we've done a lot of it ourselves, I'm not that well versed on dealing with tradies. Most of the guys that I use, I already knew. But in saying that, like, I would say my project management skills and my organisation skills aren't that great. There'll be people out there who might not be able to, hang a door, or obviously can't do their own electrical work, but they might be the best organizer out there. Like, play to your strengths, and then if you do know somebody who has those trades, or you got the uncle that can do a bit of everything, get him to teach you. People love teaching people stuff. They want to be asked. Yeah, I heard that's like a good little tip. If you want money from someone, like if you're going to get investment from someone, ask them for advice on your deal, and then they'll give you the advice, but then they'll most likely go, "Oh, what's the deal about?" And then they'll give you the money as well. So yeah, of course.
ask their advice on hey, how do I actually hang a door? And they'll be like, oh my gosh, it's one of the hardest things ever, which I tend to agree with. It's very hard to hang a door, and I'm not going to do it. But then they'll come over, and like a case of beer doesn't go astray with a tradie.
Yeah, exactly. Hayden West likes to work for just beer money.
He loves hanging doors and all the trades.
Well.
Loves painting, old Hayden.
I can see the question about how to get trades turn up. I quickly, there's a small roof leak at Acacia Ridge, and you know how much rain they've had in the last couple of months up in Queensland. So there's a little bit of mold on the ceiling, right? And so I thought I've got to get onto this quickly. And I called up a couple of roofers today. Out of four roofers, 3 said not interested, and the 4th said we can come out at the end of June to quote.
The end of June to quote.
End of June, and we're only coming to quote. And I just
that's actually that's not bad. I mean, I've been ringing sort of trades here and there around the Illawarra, and they sort of they're quoting me 2 or 3 months. So yeah, I mean, okay. you must have nicer you must have better skills at talking to people than what I do, Terry, I imagine. But yeah, I couldn't help but put this one up from Mr. Toddy Sloan, the pizza guy. He said, "Can you cut the kickball?" I think there's a backstory. I think this is in one of his
what's going on there?
The amount of times I've looked after that bloke and he tries to throw me under the bus here. I stuffed up. I chipped the kickboard and I was helping him at his latest Renault. And he's over it. He's
moved on.
Yeah, he's clearly moved on, and he's not angry with me anymore.
He's joking about it, so it must be good. Buy him his favorite pizza and happy days.
So, actually, one of the things I want to know is what are some of the complementary skills that you need on your team, right? So you're an electrician. That's one complementary skill. A handyman that knows how to paint. Like, what are some of the other skills that people should either acquire themselves or accumulate through friends, family, or through paying? Like to get a Renault project done.
Oh, look, it just depends what you're going to do. Like, there's plenty of things you can, like, yeah, it all depends. But like you said with your book, I think I've got a similar one somewhere from when I was younger that that big green shed put out, which was just, it teaches you how to do real simple, basic sort of stuff. And then these days you don't even need the book; you just get on YouTube with everything. So that's always one that's sort of handy. I think is YouTube at first, and then stuff it up once, and then you might get it right the second time.
Yeah. So when you're doing a bathroom renovation, because this is what interests me about you, because your story follows a similar trajectory. It is buy a house, put a bathroom and an extra room in it. The next purchase, buy a house, put a bathroom and a new bedroom in it. I imagine when we talk about the next one, what did you do? Put a bathroom and and a new bedroom in it?
Yeah, I did. I bought what was in effect a 2-bed, 1-bath house and turned it into a 4-bed, 2-bath house. You could argue it was 3 bedrooms. Yeah, so it was a really awkward floor plan. So bought that one. We bought it the sort of height of the COVID, hysteria, and there were 3 people at the open home, so we were able to negotiate pretty well on that. And I think I bought that for $570, something like that, in Everton Park in Brisbane. And the day we finished the reno, I was mowing the lawn for the first open home, and it was right when everybody went all of a sudden that they wanted to buy property, and there was a house up the road with 100 and something people through the open home and 35 written offers. So we just got sort of lucky that we were there at the right time originally. So it was a good one, that one.
So how'd you do that? Everyone was scared during COVID, right? Everyone's wearing masks. The whole world is collapsing. The financial system is falling through. Like, how come you went ahead and bought a property?
Oh, because I was an essential worker, Joe, so I wasn't worried about losing my job. Look, we just sort of thought it's worked once, it'll work again. If we can buy it for a good enough price, we'll be fine. you know, I figured at the time if I add value, I can't really lose. So even if it went back, even if I bought it and did the reno and it went backwards, you know, that's bad luck. But I can buy it for a really good price. I can do the reno fairly cheaply, and I just knew that there was a big enough difference between 3-bed 1 baths and 4-bed 2 baths to make it worthwhile.
Yeah. So so what happened with the value? So how much did you spend on the reno, and what did it end up being?
It was similar numbers to the previous one, so it valued up in that sort of mid to high 7s mark, but we didn't spend as much on it. I think we only spent it was pretty much the same value of the reno, but minus the underpinning. So I think it was about the 40 grand mark. So I think we were into it for early 6s, and it was worth sort of 750 when we were done. And I think now conservatively it'd be worth 1.1 maybe. It's hard to tell. It's a timber house in a suburb that has a lot of brick houses, so it's a bit of a hard one to value off comparables.
It's intense.
So
it's amazing.
Yeah. So that one was cool. Finished it off, and then then moved to Adelaide.
So when you're looking at properties that need to have a bathroom added, how do you think about that? Because I've never done a renovation with an extra bathroom on top, but how do you actually think, oh, this floor plan here is perfect for an extra bathroom? And then how do you think about the plumbing and the piping? Because if it's got a slab, like a concrete slab, and it's just a double brick home on a concrete slab, that's going to have a different consideration between a high set timber home where you've got legal height downstairs and plumbing that's exposed. Like, how do you think about that?
So the one at Carindale was a concrete slab. So that was, we sort of looked at it when we first looked at it, we thought, oh, maybe we can just keep all the plumbing pretty much where it is and put up a couple of walls. But because we had to add a toilet and whatever, we were getting the floor cut out anyway, and we were stripping it back to nothing, we thought, no, stuff it, we'll just do it. We'll set it out exactly how we want to. And so that was just obviously, you know, you need a plumber to do whatever, and a concrete cutter to come in and do it. Luckily, knew a mate who's a concrete cutter, so got him in pretty cheap and paid him, I don't know whether it was beer or beer money, but it was definitely, you know, if it was money, it was definitely turned into beer. But yeah, he came and sorted that out for us. But yeah, with the timber ones, they're obviously much easier. But as far as whether you can do it or not, it's sort of, you got to keep in mind that people don't want a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, but having the 2 bathrooms as standalone bathrooms. Like, one of them has to be an ensuite. Otherwise, people just don't, you know, they aren't interested in that. So,
So what do you mean? Why is that?
Well, rather than having 2, you need one of them needs to be an ensuite to the master, or usually the master. Yeah,
exactly. So it just, otherwise people don't want to have to go charging down the hallway. Mum and dad have the right to stay in the room. So I think that's just the one sort of thing. Because I've seen some where I go, oh, that's easy, I can fit this there, but it doesn't. They're not close.
Yeah, because I've seen a lot of properties where the smaller bedroom is on the back of the toilet, and then they've got the laundry, and then there's outside or whatever. So would you say, you know what, I could add a second bedroom, and I could add a second bathroom, like a 4th bedroom, but because it's the smaller room that's only, you know, 2.6 by 3.2, it's not really feasible because it's not the master.
That's exactly it. That's the ones we sort of wanted to avoid. This one that we bought in Everton Park, when I got up in the ceiling, you can see that they'd actually extended the back out at one point, and they had this sort of room that it was just a really long, probably 3 meter wide, but very long across the back of the house. And I just went, well, that's easy, 2 bedrooms, and then turn one of the bathrooms into a bedroom. Yeah, but it was just sort of like I look for places with really awkward floor plans, and then think, what could I do to sort of make that.
From memory, the Everton Park one was a rumpus room, wasn't it, out the back? Something? Or?
They called it a rumpus room. Yeah, it was really weird. So you had to. The only way to get to it was to walk through what they were calling 2 bedrooms.
Oh.
So it wasn't really, or you could walk in off the deck. So it was almost like a study, maybe like a sleep out. I don't know what you sort of define it as.
And so with that property, did you get access to that from the agent prior? I know you said it was around COVID, but were there?
No, I didn't. But it was just another one. We looked at a couple on that Saturday that we thought were pretty good deals. Everything was dead, and that one was just the one that sort of stood out to us. I've still never bought anything off market, which probably maybe missed some opportunities. But yeah, actually quickly the open home was quite funny, and this was sort of how I'm got better at negotiation by this point, obviously, and I was walking around and there were 3 other people there. I remember it clearly. There was a young couple, and it was hilarious to watch because he was walking around going, "Oh, look, love, we could do this," and rah, rah, and she's going, "Well, that's not even a bedroom, and that bathroom's disgusting," and rah, and he's going, "But we could do it." And I'm thinking, well, yeah, you could do it, but she's not going to let you, mate. Like you're not buying it. And then there was a young girl. She was about 19, and she took probably 500 photos in 20 minutes. And I thought,
put on Instagram.
I thought by the time, I was thinking she's going to go show it to her dad or her uncle or somebody she knows. I thought by the time you've made a decision, this house will, have been sold and renovated. And then the third one was a couple with 3 kids. And I went, well, even on your best guess, there's only, you're 1 bedroom short. And so I knew I had the upper hand because I was the only one who was genuinely going to buy it.
Yeah. So actually, one question. That's one thing I'm interested in. When you go to an open home, how do you think? Well, I guess you kind of splayed it out, but that's something that not many people think about is when they go to the open home to assess the competition. Like you fully just assessed those people and said, you know what? Actually, I know that I can get it. I was chatting to an agent today, and he said, this person's coming back for the 3rd time checking out this property. It's like, are you coming back for that second open? I'm like, no, I've already decided the property's not a fit. But if I was to come back, I wouldn't be. Why? I don't need to come back for a second time. I've already done the look. Why are you coming back for a 3rd time? So, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if there's a question
moment, there. With the way it is at the moment, things are changing, but sort of Brisbane's been crazy for however long, and Adelaide seems to still be kicking along, but it's a bit harder to assess your competition when there's 30 or 40 people through it. Like there's somebody there who's interested and is going to make an offer, So in my mind, it's a bit harder, but when it's a bit quieter, you can definitely get a bit more intel on the people around you. So the other fun thing to do is to take the father-in-law along and get him to point out things that are wrong and let other people see him doing it. And a bloke in high vis grumbling, go, "Ooh, Reese, really good at that."
Whoa, this is
and then because he'll walk around and go, making these noises, and we'll get outside and I'll say, "What do you think of that, Ray?" He goes, "Oh no, good house." What are the noises for, mate? So
don't like to look at that nail in that wall.
Yeah. Mate, yeah. So that's
where a hive is.
Another...
Bring your board shorts and your measuring tape as well. Make sure you bring your measuring tape.
Carry a ladder where a hive is. You can get in anywhere.
Absolutely. So where are we now? What's now? What happened next?
Okay, so we went down to Adelaide and we rented for a little while. My wife got a sort of transfer for work down there, and I followed her down 6 months later. And so we had a bit of I changed jobs, and so that sort of slowed us up for lending for a little while. But we've just probably the last 2 or 3 months, we settled on a place in Adelaide, in a sort of southern suburb, Hallett Cove. The first it's a bit of a different market to buy in. Was a bit of a strange negotiation process. They wanted to go to auction. I had a look at it on the Saturday. I called the agent on the Monday. I'd already spoken to him before I went to the open home because I wanted to get into it before the open home because I knew the sort of competition there was going to be, and I knew he was an agent from out of the area. So I called him up and I said, can I have a look through? No, mate, you got to come on Saturday. I turn up on Saturday and there's about 35 people, I guess, through something, 30 or 40.
Wow.
Anyway, I called him on the Monday and I said, "Oh, mate," and he'd already told me, we're keen to go to auction. And I just said to him, I said, "Look, mate, I know you're really keen to go to auction, but I'm equally as keen to not buy it at auction. So would you take an offer?" And for those playing at home, if you're buying in Adelaide and there is a quoted price on an auction campaign property, the reserve must be within 10% of that. So I knew what their reserve was going to be, knowing what the market was like, and I offered him the reserve, and he took it. So, but
yeah,
paying 50 grand more than what asking price was just didn't feel right to me, even though I felt like I was getting it for about $30,000 to $40,000 less than what the minimum would have been for it to sell at auction.
Yeah. And that's the funny thing is you never know what it would have sold for at auction. That's the most painful part. You never feel like if you've overpaid. But something you just mentioned there, I feel like may have slipped through the cracks there. But you said that if you purchase a property in Adelaide, the rules are if it's going to auction and it's listed for $500,000, it has to be price-wise. So underquoting is really big in New South Wales and Victoria and all over the country because they want as many people to be interested in, which drums up the interest and blah, blah, blah. But in Adelaide, there's a rule that has to, the reserve, what the vendor is willing to accept needs to be 10%. So it would have been 500. You offered 550. The agent said, well, yeah, that's what the vendor wants. And you just gave the vendor what they wanted and you bought it.
Yeah. So that was, another purchase off some, it was one of those, the father was, the mother had passed away and the father was going into a home and they needed the money. So I thought, well, if I can, it sort of all the stars aligned where the agent was from outside of the area. He sells in a much nicer part of Adelaide.
Alex is pretty nice.
Well, yeah, but he sells sort of Unley, which is a sort of sort of part.
Like
really good chip.
Yeah, so I wasn't buying any of his other properties, but yeah, I just said to him, I said, "Look, mate, I know you don't want to come down to Hallett Cove more than you have to. So what if you just sell it to me?" And he laughed at me and then sold it to me. So yeah, it worked out all right.
If they laugh, they list. That's what some agents say. So if they laugh, they buy, they sell. Okay, cool. So what type of property was this thing? Like, what did it look like?
Look, they tarted it up for the sale. So that was another thing I was a bit disappointed with myself in, that I bought a place that had been prettied up, because I like buying things that scare people. That's what I used to tell agents. I like houses that scare people because I don't want the competition when I buy. But anyway, so it was a 3-in-1 brick and tile. But yeah, it has that floor plan that allows an extra bedroom to be put into it, and a bathroom. The bathroom's quite large. There's the master bedroom's quite big, so we could build in some. There's a large built-in walk-in wardrobe sort of thing that can. Oh, Jeff's back. A walk-in wardrobe thing that can sort of be utilised to maybe an ensuite and muck around with that. But this is a place we're probably going to live in for 4 or 5 years, so we'll just do it slowly while we're there. We won't go too hard on this one just yet.
Yeah, but you've got the potential there to add that extra bedroom, add that extra bathroom onto it.
Yeah, that's the plan. That's the plan. So can I just quickly address something? Michael Zarans has asked what my thoughts are on double showers. And Michael, you told me it wasn't possible, mate, and I got a double-headed shower in Everton Park, so I deserve an apology, and I also deserve an apology for you absolutely fleecing me on the tiling, mate. Absolute rip-off merchant, that bloke.
I've never heard you say a nice thing about a tiler, Terry.
Well, that's because there's nothing nice to say about them.
I
take it back. I'm sure there's lovely tilers out there. They're just not Michael Zarans. So.
I was the one that brought him in. I tagged him, so you can blame me after this. He might not have been watching.
Thanks, mate. Thank you.
It's Wednesday night.
So yeah, I'm interested. What would be some of the things to look out for because this strategy is like adding a bedroom is something that I always look out for in a deal, not necessarily adding a bathroom, but what are some of the things we should look out for when trying to implement this strategy?
So the main thing is making sure that it's worthwhile. So you could there's plenty of 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom houses out there that you could add a bedroom and a bathroom to, but there's often no point, right? So you look at the difference between a 3-bed, 1-bath and a 4-bed, 2-bath. I've looked at places sort of out Ipswich way over the years, and not saying that it can't be done out there. There probably are places that can do it, and it may have changed since I looked. But at the time, that people just weren't paying a premium for a 4-bed, 2-bath house. So there was no point in doing it. You know, it might be worth 50 grand more, but it'll cost you 40 grand to get there. Well, then that's just not. There's no meat in it. So main thing is knowing your numbers, and just knowing what a bedroom is. You can't have a 2 by 2 meter bedroom with no window. It's, you know, there's minimum heights, 2.4 meters, 2,400 millimeters high. Should have a window. What do they say? Cross flow ventilation, I believe, is the term they use. So it's also got to open, as far as I'm aware. I'm not a builder.
Yeah,
so
a door and a window, right?
A door and look, what kind of bedroom, what kind of room doesn't have a door, Joe? Well, you mean yeah, gotcha. I thought you just meant a box with a window. You got to climb in through the window.
Yeah, you got to climb in through the window. But if it's got 2 windows, 1 window in, 1 window out, that's cross ventilation.
Now we're talking. Gotcha. But yeah, so that's just making sure you know your numbers is probably pretty important. And I know that can be kind of hard if you don't know how much the reno is going to cost you. But yeah, you can always call tradies, ask them how much things are going to cost, and you know they might even give you a square meter rate to budget price things.
So what is the average for adding a bedroom and a bathroom for you? It sounds like 40, 50K. Is that within region?
Look, that, excuse me, that was for the whole house. Like the Everton Park, we did a full paint inside and outside. Paid somebody to do a full paint inside and outside, and then moved a few walls, made a built-in pantry, mucked around with a kitchen, new ovens, you know, things like that. So I worked out, the last one I worked out exactly how much the bathroom cost us. It was $9 grand to do both bathrooms at Carindale. So we're doing pretty cheap.
$9 grand. $9 grand.
But you can sort of get away with it with you can save yourself money by buying tiles off Gumtree. Like, people are terrible on tape measures. They can't measure to save their life, and so they end up with 10, 20 square meters of tiles left over. And I picked up some terrazzo look ones, and Michael Zarans will tell you he can tell the difference. But of course he can tell the difference. He's a tiler. I'm not getting a tiler to rent it. I'm not going to, nobody's going to know that those terrazzo look ones aren't the $180 a square meter tile. When I just picked them up for $10, and to the naked eye you wouldn't know the difference. So Gumtree's your friend with things like that.
Yeah. So yeah, that's such a great point. Gumtree is like, and this is like a theme that I'm seeing throughout your journey is just it's not been easy. Like, it's been hard. It's been hard work. Every single purchase. There's no free lunch here. It's not been an easy ride, and it's not been a free ride.
No, the goal has always been to just sort of get the next deposit, and then sort of get a decent enough yield to hold, and then get in the way of growth.
So have you considered selling any of these? Like, have you gone down the line of selling any? Like, what does that look like?
Isn't that blasphemy, Joe?
Well, look, Hayden's just had an aneurysm. So, look, I have considered selling a couple. Or not selling a couple, selling different ones at different stages, but I haven't pulled the trigger on selling anything as yet, and I'm glad I haven't. As Brisbane slows down and my land tax bill increases, it may make sense. to turn one over, but we'll wait and see. It's definitely not a first resort. I'm not a flipper. And like, let's be honest. Let's imagine I made 150,000 out of each Renault. And that's possibly more than what I did on most of them. Even if I did it 5 times, that's $750,000, right?
Yeah.
The growth in the portfolio just by holding it is well in excess of that over the last 18 months. So I can't see the point in turning them over at this point.
Yeah, and then also there comes the question of like, why bother? Why bother renovating? Why don't you just buy it, hold it, forget about it? Like buy something that's already had the renovation done, and then it's not bother.
So sorry, say that again. Cut out a little bit.
Well, like why not? Why bother selling it? Like, sorry, why bother renovating it and adding the value and doing all of this stuff? Because renovating it's given you 750K, and not renovating, holding it's given you 1.2, 1.3, 1.5 thousand.
The
million.
The difference for me was definitely it was that it was all about getting the next deposit, and then like sort of I always had this sort of I guess at the time it's always a bit of hope. Well, let's be honest. Growth is never guaranteed, never ever, no matter where you are. But over time, I had a strong opinion that Brisbane would have its time in the sun, which it's just had, and I wanted to have as much property exposed to that at that point. And if I could have it at the goal was always to try to get it to a 6% yield through the renovation. And like for people who don't know, like Carindale's quite a nice suburb in Brisbane. A 6% yield there isn't easy. Sort of the same with Everton Park, Acacia Ridge. If you buy well there, you could have got 6%. But yeah, the others have definitely not been places where you'll get that sort of stuff. And that was my goal, 6%.
Yeah, and after the reno, you got that on all of them. Close to
high fives on all. I think I cracked 6 on Carindale because of how low they're all past 6 now with rent increases. Helensvale is mental, so will be at the next time it goes up for rent. So.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, cool. Well, let's jump into our next sponsor. But before we jump into that, I'm interested to hear about what your strategy is now, because I feel like we've gotten to this point of building equity, like doing the sweat equity, right? You bought the house, you got the hand up, and I don't think it's a hand out using a guarantor loan. It's a hand up to get you into and help you with things. But then you're like, crap, this thing hasn't gone very well. Let's get let's build our $100,000, and then you've just kept multiplying that. One question before we go to the ad is, did you save for another deposit after that? Or did you, like, after you saved that 100 grand, did you just roll that into the next property and then the next property, and you've only used equity for the deposit?
So for deposits, yes. I'm trying to remember. I think Carindale, we saved more cash and you used cash for the renovation. And then Everton Park, I think we used some cash because it was Everton Park was fairly quick after Carindale, so we didn't have time to save much up, but we sort of saved 20 or 30, and then whatever the rest was equity.
Yeah, there you go. So he hasn't put much more back into the portfolio, Joe, from the sounds of it, after the 100K.
No.
A little bit.
Yeah, exactly. You've built your portfolio, and that's what I love about your strategy is, you're adding value, but it sucks having to do all that work and energy and effort, but you wouldn't have the portfolio. You would have 2-3 properties now if you didn't put the sweat equity in to get the release of the equity in the next properties.
I'd have Acacia Ridge, and that's it. So yeah, and Acacia Ridge is still sitting. I haven't touched any of the equity in it, so it's just been taking a little while.
Yeah, well, I'm imagining you're getting to a point where you're kind of getting tapped out for the borrowing. You're going to have to start getting creative with your strategy. So let's jump into your strategy. We're going to jump into our ad. And then I want to hear all about that as well. So
and more Q&A as well.
no more Q&A.
Sorry, Joe. Did it too quick.
Commercial property offers the highest cash flow in Australian property investing, offering exceptionally higher yields than residential. Now, we're talking 8 to 10% net yields. That's cash after all expenses, not this 2 to 6% gross that we see in the residential space. So for those that are starting out on their commercial investing journey, it can be exciting, but it's also a step not to be taken lightly. The expertise of a commercial buyer's agent can pay dividends to help you secure that high cash flow and high growth potential property. And this is why we recommend Steve Polisi of Polisi Property. With over 6 years experience in the space, Steve has over 1,200 property transactions under his belt. He has seen it all and knows the best locations right for growth. In a previous life, Steve was a chartered mechanical and structural engineer, so he draws on his mathematical and analytical skills that he's developed to break down what works best in commercial property. As with engineering, same goes with commercial property. It's based primarily on the numbers. So if you're curious about diversifying into commercial property, you have access to $100,000 in cash or in equity, book a call with Steve today and find that perfect asset for you.
Yeah, Joe, we are back. So talking about the strategy. So what is it that's what's next for Uncle Terry or Terry the renovator, Reese? What's up? Where do we go from here? Or not
Terry
really.
the Raider.
Yeah, the Raider. If only. I was never good enough. Look, if the next is sort of the portfolio now is probably worth like high fours, and I've got significant equity there that I could get at, but it's getting harder and harder to sort of get at that. And so in my mind, it's rents are increasing, which is great, but I'm going to go looking for a bit higher cash flow to make that sort of equity work a bit harder for me. Probably won't involve the renos that I've done in the past. So yeah, I'm a bit hesitant on the commercial side at this point in time. Not to downplay the show sponsor or anything like that, because it's definitely something that.
Not to downplay the ad we just watched.
Yeah, then that's not that. Commercial property is right for some people. I just at the moment I'm just a bit hesitant to pull the trigger on it. I'll probably do it at some point. But yeah, I think I'll keep working towards some higher cash flow stuff. Unit blocks and things like that. Having a look around, so see what's available.
Yes. So why not go down the equity harvesting? Because that's what you've been doing, right? You've been harvesting equity by, spending 50K and getting 150K out of it. Why not just continue doing that?
Oh, because the bank doesn't like me. So the banks are just making things more difficult than they need to be. But I completely understand why they do what they've got to do, or why they've got to do what they do. But yeah, so I just think if I can continue just buying to create more equity, I just get myself more and more equity that's just sitting there completely useless. The equity in my mind, once you get to a certain point, is nice. It feels good, but it doesn't change your life in any way. So converting that to a bit of cash flow, in my mind, is a pretty good thing, or is the next goal anyway.
Yeah, and the question jumped up, which is exactly what I was thinking. So why hesitation on commercial?
I think that there's.
Oh, that's Hayden.
Is it Hayden? Is it?
No, that's Braden. The other one that rhymes with Hayden.
No, it's a great question though. Like it's the question I want answered.
I just think to get a decent yield, like the yields have been absolutely crunched on anything under $1 million from what I see around the place, and I see there's obviously a lot of risk, business risk, as far as if you're purchasing a commercial property, you're pretty much joint venturing with a business in my mind. And if
Good way to look at it.
If a business goes bust, if the economy goes to absolute custard, let's just imagine tomorrow, everything implodes tomorrow. People still need somewhere to live, but people don't need somewhere for their business to be, because if their business doesn't exist anymore. So that to me, that's what I'm. I just don't see the value in a fire. I know it's net, but in an early 5% yield, which is what I probably couldn't get something over that $1 million at the moment. So yeah, I just don't see the value in it. But if you get
a block of units in Toowoomba, Townsville for $1 million, you might not get a 5% net yield either.
No, I might not, but I just don't think the risk versus reward is there at the moment. And like a town, a unit block in Toowoomba, let's just pick somewhere. If there's 4 or 5 units, and you can get these sort of things in commercial, but it's probably a bit more expensive. If you got 5 units and one of them goes empty, you got 80% of your rent still coming in. So I just think there's almost, not that there's no risk. There's risk in everything. There's before you put your feet on the floor, when you wake up in the morning, you've taken a risk. So it's just what level it is. So
my favorite little saying that we've had on this little podcast was we've got the guy's name now, and he's like, risk is just looking across the road, right? When you're a kid, you'd run out in front of traffic. That's an incredible risk. But now that we're adults, we look left and we look right, and that's how we assess the risk. And that's exactly what you're doing. Like, that's exactly what you're doing in property. When you're aware of what the situation is, when you look left and you look right, you know what the situation is, then you can assess the risk and have it there. So rather than like what, a lot of people do is, oh, that's a massive risk, I'm not even going to look into it. But if you shine light on it, bring clarity to the situation, oh, actually, I can build a second bathroom, or I can inject foam that expands really a lot. It lifts 5 billion tons. It's just pretty cool for only $20,000. All of a sudden, I can buy a derelict house and turn it into a perfectly livable home. And that's what I really like about your story. So, your story is you've just found that way. You've shone the light on the thing. I'm all for it. So, are you looking for a block of units right now?
I'm looking for cash flow right now. I've been spending most of my time trying to sort of pretty up the place that we bought to live in, so I haven't been too strong on it. I've also, with my new job, I've gone backwards in pay and whatever, but so lending is becoming more and more difficult. So it's sort of just and plus when you get to the point where you've got, and there's people here with many more properties than what I do, it just gets exponentially more difficult to get lending just based on the paperwork alone.
Well, bigger is not always better, and sometimes less is more. I suppose it depends on what somebody's goal is. Is it if somebody wants to own 15 or 20 properties, like what purpose is that serving? Is it serving an ego kind of thing, or that's kind of?
I'd like less debt and more properties. That would be how I would.
That's what everybody would want. Yeah.
So
interesting. Well, I've got a 4-pack you might be interested in, Terry. I've got a 4-pack.
A 4-pack.
4-pack.
Vodka cruisers.
What kind of beer?
Not vodka cruise. We'll chat about it later. I'll send it over to you. I think you might like it. Okay, cool. So I like this. I like this story so far. You put sweat equity, built up the cash flow. What would you do if you were starting all over again, right? Like, you're back at 19-year-old Terry today. Like, I imagine we have some 19-year-olds on here right now. They're just sitting down and thinking, gosh, Uncle Terry, he's had a really good ride. But what would you do in this market right now? How would you go about buying and starting your portfolio over again?
Right this second, I would, if I was going to buy again, I would be concentrating on on yield at this point. And the only reason I say that is that we've had so much growth in so many places that growth doesn't go forever. So if you're going to start buying now, you don't want to be buying at a 3% yield and then finding out that the next 10 years doesn't hold any growth for you on that property. Acacia Ridge is a perfect example. It was, when I rented it out, it was over 5% yield, and it just sat there and paid for itself. So there's no harm, no foul. It sat there for a decade and just slowly, paying for itself. But yeah, if I was starting again now, and it's something that not many people talk about in this, but it's an obvious one, is go get a job that pays you well. No, seriously. I know that sounds real, just lift yourself up by your own bootstraps. And I understand it's not easy, but go and get the best paying job you can get, save as much money as you can, and if you can keep saving deposits for the first 2 or 3, and you can do it over a couple of years, you'll find yourself in a pretty good position when that cycle rolls around.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. I think it was in 2014 or 2015. I got my real estate license to become a real estate agent. And because I thought real estate agents, they hold the keys to the houses. They're obviously the best investors ever. And then I'm like, cool, I'll go get my real estate license. I'll become a real estate agent. And then I'll make all the money and I'll make all the property. And then I started talking to real estate agents, and I realized that they have a base salary that they need to pay back to the franchisee. So they're actually on like 60K, and the rest is commission. And it becomes very challenging to borrow money in that kind of setup. So then I was like, okay, cool. Well, then I went into like tech sales, which was a lot more lucrative, which allowed me to then continue to build a property portfolio. But there are transitions into other industries that can help you along, I guess, is what you're saying.
Yeah, look, I'm not saying it's easy, but like if you see an infomercial on Facebook that says we can retire you in 14 seconds, and even if you only earn $3 a year, they're all the more money you make, the easier it is. The harder you work, the easier it is. And I've had this conversation with Hayden, for example, where everybody, if you want to get ahead in life, you have to choose a time in your life for it to be hard. And if you choose that early, later on becomes much easier. But if you kick the can down the road, you have to work a whole lot harder to get to that good spot that you could if you had just started a bit earlier.
So what were some of the sacrifices that you made early on?
I probably, when I bought Acacia Ridge, could have bought a nicer place, but I wouldn't have been able to hold on to it probably. Look, I've had times in my life where I got made redundant at one point. As far as work goes, I probably did every second week of after hours call for that 12 months when we were saving the money. I did after hours call every time it was up. I was doing it, and some days you wouldn't get home till 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. It was pretty intense at times, but yeah, it's just I think it's something that gets underplayed is how much a good decent income can set you up.
And because you sacrificed a lot, do you regret anything during that? Do you regret doing that?
No. Look, I'd love to have gotten a handout from proper handout from the bank of mum and dad, but I don't think I'd appreciate it as much if I did. So I don't regret doing it. At 1 o'clock in the morning, getting drunk idiots out of lifts, if you had asked me at that time, I probably would have given you a different answer. But yeah, I don't regret any of it.
It's worked out pretty bloody well. But sacrificed early, right? Okay, cool. Well, let's jump into some of the comments. So anyone that has got comments there is a boatload of comments. There's a whole lot that I don't think are very valuable.
everyone's comment is valuable, Joe. Everybody gets
not that it's not valuable, but you know, there are some like this one probably. You're not interested, Terry. That's probably not. It's probably not too valuable. But yes, throw in any comment. I don't know.
Oh, of course it's Hayden.
So throw in some questions, because I think that this has been an awesome episode, and I've thoroughly thoroughly enjoyed it. But I just think you come on, Joe, come on. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, but you've done the hard work, right? Like that's what I love about this. You've just gone and proved if you find a property in a half decent location, but you force the value. Actually, one question I did have before was how much disparity do you look for between a 3-bed and a 4-bed to be able to justify it? Like what? Look,
I'm not going to give you an answer that anybody's going to like, but it was enough to make it worth my while. And I sort of I'd quantify how much work it was. And I think Todd and I actually sat down at one point and did the maths on it. And it was like, he worked out I'd made $3,500 a week during the Renault or something crazy like that. And when you look at it from that point of view, it was, it was pretty good. But yeah, I wanted to easily double my money and if not triple my money. And most times I did 3 to 4 times, I guess, something like that.
Okay. So you were looking at from more of the dollars that you put in to what I can get out,
and then was aiming for that 6% yield, which we got close to, and that was just because 6% yield you hold it nice and easy on those interest rates, and before we get to really scary interest rates or higher interest rates, we're going to get some rental growth that'll keep it easy enough to hold.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on interest rates, Terry? You said scary interest rates. I don't think we're going to get to what's scary.
Oh, mate, but if you talk to anybody who was around in the 80s, they tell you about scary interest rates.
18,
as
19.
As soon as they get the chance. But yeah, look, I think I've said on the page before, like if you're not preparing for higher interest rates, then you've got your head in the sand. It's coming. They're always coming. You can't be at 0.1% forever. So it was. I just think expect them to be. They've been working out on a buffer of 2.5 to 3%. Expect that's going to happen at some point, I guess. If you look at fixed rates, they're at 4s now. So
they're actually the majors are sort of early to mid 4s. Some of the non sort of are getting up in the higher 4s, so 3-year fix that is, and even I've even heard sort of 3-year fix up into the 5%, which interesting that some people are selecting that option. I'm not saying they shouldn't, but I'm skeptical that they can keep raising the cash rate that much. Not so it'll definitely go up a little bit more probably, but who knows where as high as it go? But I just think I suspect there might be some wobbling in the economy if they start raising the cash rate above 2 or 3%. I suspect. I mean, I don't know for sure.
Mate, there's lots of much smarter people than me who've got it completely wrong. So in the past, so
you're bound to be right, Terry.
Have you got a dartboard? So yeah.
I had a question here. So somebody said 6% yield. What is your denominator? Purchase price plus Renault cost, I'd imagine, is it? Or you just do
pretty much. My main aim, and this was just personal, it's probably not the way other people would do it, but I was only worried about the debt that I held because I was just worried about how long I could hold on to it. So there's a million different ways for people to express their yield. Like, is it on purchase price? Is it on current value? Is it on, do you include stamp duty in it? Is it what you owe? Is it what the place is worth? Like, what is it?
Yeah. After all expenses?
There's so many different ways to express yield, but I've just figured I was only worried about what I owed. So
Oh, but you were borrowing at 100% most of the time because you were pulling it from one property to another. So you were just going at
borrowing at 80, then you do it off 80% of whatever the valuation would be. Yeah, from the sounds of it.
Yeah. So something like that.
I just had to throw this one in. I couldn't help myself.
Yeah.
And the answer is no to that because he's over at a mate's place in WA.
Obviously joined in late. Then massive debacles, mate. Had a flight turnaround on me today and send me back to my mate's house. So I had to do this in the ensuite. So if you want to, it's beautiful, isn't it? It's lovely. You don't get this sort of, colour.
There's also some heckling going on from Jason, your broker, who said about exploiting your old man for the Renaults. Jeez, it's not very nice to
It's funny about the old man you exploited for the Renaults. Oh. Yes, Jason, we have. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm absolutely getting torn apart here. Like who?
Yeah, that's what I mean about trying to find a valuable one. It's commercial property scary.
That's Hayden. I don't even need to know. That's Hayden.
It's just turning into just
there's a bit of
36-hour week.
Hayden loves to throw shade for a bloke who's never come on.
That's true. The shirt will be torn apart when you try and take it off tonight, I reckon, mate.
Oh, that's a Jason Bush.
Okay. Any of the other people that are not the audience of people that want to tear Terry to shreds have any questions about his journey?
There's been heaps of people watching, so I suppose the thing I wanted to sort of, I was going to say, there was a question I had earlier, but I think the thing that's impressed me, it's not so much a question, but how did you actually sort of say, okay, we didn't quite nail that purchase. How did you then sort of pick yourself up and go to the next one? Because a lot of people, they see your property and they buy it in 2 years or 3 years, it doesn't grow. And then they just say, oh, it's all too hard. Property sucks. It doesn't work. How did you do that?
I always sort of, when I bought Acacia Ridge, I think that's sort of what you're talking about, I assume.
Just
nothing. So with Acacia Ridge, I looked at Acacia Ridge and I went, it's done nothing. But in the same time, if you looked at Sydney or you looked at Melbourne or wherever it was going, doing well at the time, you went, well, this works. It's just this is just what the decision I made that wasn't the greatest, and let's sort of go, it would be. I just figured I had to take responsibility for making the wrong decision and sort of go and try to find that next one that was going to be the right decision.
That's Jason. He's sort of there's some love coming back.
Come back. He's turned around.
He's just acting out. He's all right.
He's just acting. But yeah, this was someone was saying about you saving that $100,000. No one talks about stacking the cash to get to the next step. It's always about growth. But growth comes personally as well, which I think is, yeah. I think that sounds like a good thing. That's what they're saying. But I think that's the epitome of this whole conversation of what I took out of this is that not only were you you saw an opportunity, exactly like what Jef was saying, you could have taken this and turned this into, oh, well, property's crap because my Acacia Ridge hasn't moved. But then you decided to, okay, I can see it works. How do I make it work? And then put the hard yards in to save the money, made the sacrifices, because I imagine every single night you're staying up till 2 a.m. and then you still have to wake up at 6 to get out into another lift.
He just lifted himself up. He just lifted every time he fell down. He just got into another lift.
I'm not doing the lift jokes. I'm not doing it.
I think this is a really valuable question. This is an interesting one. I don't know if I think we have spoken about this, but did you go P&I loan or interest only during the acquisition phase, or is it a mixture?
It was a bit of a mixture. I like P&I because it's just, people say, it's forced savings, and it 100% It 100% is. It depends. Like we were in a position where we could afford the P&I because the yields were fine. If you can't buy again because you can't save the next deposit or whatever it is, then go interest only. That's fine in my mind. But P&I definitely opens up more options. Like as you pay down debt, if you've paid it off for 5 years and then you go and re-extend that loan back out over 30 years, you reduce your repayments. But you don't have to do that. You might want to keep paying it down aggressively, but it just gives you more options. You might have kids on the way, and it changes the way the options that you have at that point by paying P&I over a period of time.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like it's important to think about those two options, because I like to think about it. Principal and interest payments are forced savings, but interest only allows you to. It's controlled savings. You get to you put less money in, but you can then put that money that you're going to put in the principal into your account, which will be for your next deposit. But if you are someone that buys nice boats and things, then maybe you shouldn't do that. You should not be doing that.
Not yet, Joe. Not yet.
This is actually a follow-up about the exit plan. I don't know if you've actually determined this yet, but interested to throw that one at you.
Exit plan. I think over time we're to pay it down. That, like I said before, about getting more cash flow into the portfolio. It's probably positive now. I don't know, $60,000 or $70,000 a year when you add it all up. But a lot of that would be on interest only. So a lot of that goes to paying down debt over time, because I'm not at the point where I need the income yet. Exit plan. If I can hold all of them, that would be ideal. I know that a lot of people like to have every step of the way marked out, but I'm sort of, I don't know, buck the trend in that sense, where I'll just make the best decisions I can at any given point, and I guess it's got me where I am. So
worked out pretty bloody well.
Terry's exit plan is to not exit. So that's,
There was a question about what was your rough discount estimate for cladding versus brick, but I'm more interested about what are your thoughts with cladding, like not cladding, cladding over the top of bricks, or rendering. Like, have you got any thoughts about that type of style in a renovation? Have you ever done any of that, or?
We rendered Helensvale, but that was more for aesthetics. It was that old red brick sort of build, and it was just very, very dark and dingy. But no, not really. I think there's interesting. I've seen a few renos where people have just rendered the front of the house, and it's made a significant difference. So that's always something you can sort of look at, I guess.
Isn't next door to yours?
No. Well, yeah, you're right. That was it. Yeah, that was an interesting one. They didn't do a lot in that house. Yeah.
Love it. Cool. Any other questions that have come through?
Yeah, no, I think the audience is still they're piling in. There's actually getting more and more people come the longer we go. So, but I think I promised Terry about an hour and a half. So we're just a touch after that. So we should probably let him go and actually enjoy his night. But
exactly, he's got a new place in WA.
I just wanted to throw this out. Hayden's saying that we don't want him on, apparently, Joe. But we'll only comments about you in the shower.
Perfect.
Jesus.
Love it. Terry, you don't have anything to sell us, Terry. You've just been an investor. But how do people, because you're a great contributor to this group, how do people how do people get in touch if they've got any kind of questions or anything like that?
Just
send it to Joe.
Just add me. Just add me. I don't care. Yeah.
Hello.
Give yourself a plug, Joe. I don't know. Add me, reach out. I don't care. I love talking property. I usually get a few texts from different people within the group on a daily basis talking all things property. So yeah, I find that's another sort of thing I find that's good about this group is there's a lot that goes on in the group, and then there's bits on the side where I've met a few really interesting characters, which is the only way I can describe Hayden. No, I'm only kidding. But But yeah, like we're often bouncing ideas off each other. Like reach out to people who've gotten to where you want to be and have a chat to them. It's always really helpful.
Yeah, and there's people like you, Terry. Like you've got $4.5 million in portfolio. Like that is a success because you're 30, 35 or 30 odd.
30 mate, settle down.
30,
Jesus.
Sorry, mate. Sorry.
34. I've just had a rough life.
You look a bit.
Talking to people in bathrooms.
Too many Renos. But you got so many cycles left. Like you've achieved so much, and it's amazing that you share so much of your knowledge and help people in the group as well. So I want to thank you for that.
And it's just super humble as well. Like you're not somebody who goes and needs to flash that you've got like millions of equity or whatever it is, like hundreds of thousands. You are sort of willing to actually take the time out and just help the next person who I'm sure there was people that helped you early days as well. So appreciate you, and we'll catch up for a beer eventually. You'll have to come to Sydney.
Mate, we've been saying that for half a decade. I just refuse to go to Sydney.
I'm actually not in. I'm down in Wollongong, mate. Wollongong is
that's Sydney.
You have to go through Sydney. You have to go through Sydney. Awesome. Let's do it, guys. Okay. Thank you very much, Terry. Thank you, Jeff. Let's go buy a property. See you guys later.
Renovate.
See you guys.
Renovate.
Oh,